Dr. Marcus Skribek,
Yes, hi there. Hi, Patrick.
how are you feeling?
I'm feeling all right. How are you feeling?
I'm very good. It's been too long since I've last seen you. I know you've been in quarantine
Yeah,
and
uh,
you've been on the front line of this COVID-19 sort of virus that's been fought around the world. So tell us what's been happening.
well, I mean, I am working at the oncology department, so I was there. Just a normal day. That's pretty much when this whole corona started. And then, yeah, I just thought it was one of those tougher weeks. And I just started feeling really tired. So I'm just like, it's probably just one of those weeks. And then the whole weekend kind of went by. I was tired, and then my boss told me, "Oh, maybe it's a good idea to like test you." And then we did the test, and then it turned out I was positive. I had pretty mild symptoms, so it's. I mean, compared to like the intensive care patients, I can't say I can complain about a lot. But I mean, it was a tough couple of weeks. I mean, I was sick for about 5 weeks, and I'm still not haven't completely recovered. So yeah, it's difficult, and it's pretty much everything that they write about, like the breathlessness and all these things. But it's nice to have first-hand experience in a way. But yeah, I'm glad it's over. I can now.
Yeah.
I've been there, done that, and it was fun being at home for 5 weeks, seeing all the shows on Netflix and everything. But it was nice to come back to work as well.
So tell me this, as a doctor, you are obviously you know a lot more about how things operate than the average person on the street. Was it more daunting for you to get a positive response or a positive sort of test, or did that make it easier for you, the fact that you knew more?
Well, that's an interesting question, actually, because I was very worried at the beginning because I heard about this breathlessness and this like pain and like chest pains, but when you actually experience it, it becomes like a whole new kind of reality. Even though I know what's happening and I know what's going on, and I've read some studies and everything that were going on, but and obviously I'm not an infectologist or an epidemiologist to know everything about this virus, but nobody really seems to know that much about it, to be honest. But it was definitely a bit scary at the beginning. So
Yeah,
I'm kind of glad it went the way it did. So I didn't have that many problems.
I can imagine. I was in Seychelles over New Year's Eve,
Yeah.
and at around 2 a.m. in the morning of the 2nd, going into the 3rd of January, I
Mm.
woke up and I had not a breath.
Oof.
And obviously, before Christmas, there was sort of talk of coming out of China about this virus and this lockdown and things, but there was nothing within a European perspective at that stage.
Mm. Mm.
So for most of January, I was in bits. Like,
Oof.
and it was only when I looked back at it in March, when I read, the symptoms of what this COVID-19 was, that I was like, that's exactly what I had. Because
Mm.
I
Mm.
it just shook me out of my sleep,
Yeah.
and I was weak for about a month, as you say.
Yeah.
And of course, I was coming to the end of a project that I was working on for the city of Stockholm at that time.
Mm. Mm.
And it was sort of like, I'm going to sleep in until noon and try and get some energy, and then get up and try and sort of push through this project and get it done. That's how it was for me.
Mm.
And I felt as if I just had no energy in me.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, I didn't really notice the thing about the smell or the taste or anything at that time. But as far as the other symptoms were concerned, I really sort of was impacted by that to an extreme level that I'd never felt before.
So you had lost those senses then.
I don't know. Actually, it wasn't something that I think back and go, I wonder, was my taste or my smell gone at
Yeah.
that time? But it was more like just everything else was there. So maybe it was
Sure.
gone or maybe it wasn't, but it wasn't. It was the least of my worries at that time, because it was the rest of my body was just in pain. I had pains in my lung and various things like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. And even for me, like just like you said, it wasn't a reality until I don't know, about March, this whole corona, maybe late February, and nobody really took it seriously. I know I didn't really at the beginning. So, it kind of just, I don't know, gets you very suddenly, and it
Yeah.
becomes a reality very quickly. And now that you think back at what actually happened, it becomes kind of a scary thought. I mean, many of my colleagues got sick, and they were also very tired and very sick for a longer period of time, which is kind of unusual. You know, you get the flu, you're really down for a couple of days, but this is completely different. I wasn't super down for a couple of days. It was just like a long stretch.
Yeah.
It was
And what?
fluctuating as well. Some days were much better than others, you know? So it was a very, very weird period, definitely. And my mother as well, she described exactly the same things. So, you know, it's hard to actually know who is positive and who isn't.
Yeah.
That's what makes it interesting as well, because there are about 50 other viruses and bacteria going around this time of the year. So, you know, it's hard to actually pinpoint
Yeah. Well,
what's causing all these. It's probably the time frame, really.
I think Sweden had done they had done some sort of calculations and said that by the 1st of May, which is today, that 1/3 of the country would have caught the virus and be in the process of either flushing it through or moving it on. And we're talking like 3.5 million people. So, I mean, you're back at work now this week, I think. What's the mood like around the hospital, and what do you think about Sweden's approach generally to, you know, now that 1/3 of this country has it? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, when I got back to work, I initially thought everyone's going to be keeping their distance from me, you know, knowing that I was positive and everything, but everyone's pretty cool with it. So I can't say I mean, we're practicing social distancing anyway, you know, regardless of whether I was positive or not. But yeah, it's not exactly I mean, everybody asked me how it was and what it was like going through it from a medical perspective as well. And so that was an interesting experience for sure. And as to how Sweden's handling this, I mean, I think it's an interesting experiment for sure. And there's a lot of criticism around this, you know, especially Sweden having their own kind of method, and let's call it an experiment, compared to many other countries who've totally blocked everything, even though they're opening up now. So it's, I mean, you know, everyone's entitled to their own opinions, but I think it was the right choice, the way Sweden did it. So, but obviously we'll see how it unfolds and how it works out for everyone.
Yeah. I was talking to a guy this week who's quite well connected, and he's really a knowledge sort of intensive guy. He loves to chat to various people within the know, and he's at the very top level of professional sports.
Yeah,
and he was telling me about one of his friends who's a pro golfer from Italy. Said that a few weeks ago we had all these great videos coming out of Italy of a lot of people who were singing from their balconies and coming together as a community. But he said now you don't see those videos anymore. He says a lot of the problems they're having in Italy are as a result of the lockdown, as opposed to people singing from the balconies. Now they're using the balconies for something else, which is to jump off them. You know, and I mean that's another tragedy. So the lockdown is not something that really impacts upon Sweden in the extent that it's impacted across the rest of Europe or the rest of the world, maybe. So we don't really understand the sort of pain that must come with being locked in a room, you know, almost like an animal in a zoo for weeks and weeks on end, and not knowing when this could close down, and the impact that must have on people. So just around that alone, I start to calculate at what stage does the prevention of the virus become worse than the having of the virus. Whenever you hear things like that, like also the amount of domestic abuse cases, alcohol sales have gone up like 600% in some areas. You know, there's an other negative side to this. Then you've got people who can't go to hospitals with normal sicknesses because they're sort of locked down. I mean, you're on the sort of, as I said, you're on the front line of that. What is the mood like around the hospitals, or what's the vibe?
Yeah, well, they have taken measures obviously as well. So those visits which are deemed somewhat unnecessary can usually we started this video conferencing now just this week in some places. And we sometimes call the patients as well to see how they're doing and everything. But obviously, it's not the same as an actual visit. You can't place those visits. So, and cancer patients are the risk group in this because they are immunosuppressed and they are generally elderly people as well. So, I think, Karolinska's had a lot of backlash in the past couple of years, but I think they handled this really well. I really do think that everything's gone quite smoothly. It's been well structured and organized. Everything's been clear the whole way through. And I talked about this with some of my colleagues, and they agreed as well. And it's the same thing with this Swedish mentality behind this corona, how the government's handling this situation. There's many people who agree with it. Most people that I've spoken with. So I feel like it's generally accepted.
Yeah. Well. Yeah, we're both considered essential workers in different ways. I'm working for the city of Stockholm, and we must maintain our office and keep it open. Yeah. Of course, you're a doctor, you're at the front line. And I have noticed around the city that people have been very respectful, actually. The tunnelbana, like the metros, the Stockholm metro stations have been empty for sure, but in the tunnelbana itself, it might be like one person per 4 seats or even less. So Sweden is sort of the ideal testing ground for as a country to keep it open, because almost by habit, the people here are very respectful of others, and they sort of keep their distance, generally long before anything like this came into place. And what is going on in the hospitals? Are they quite quiet now, or is there just can you explain what it's like to be in the hospital at the minute?
Yeah, I haven't been to the emergency department, obviously, but I read all the time that there's chaos there, and it's difficult for everyone working there. And it was kind of like that at the beginning here too. But I would say for us in the oncology department, it's been quite okay. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's been. I obviously haven't been at work the past couple of weeks, so I can't exactly comment on that. I just know from feedback from others that it's been quite like a normal day, pretty much every day. Mm-hmm. So obviously some days were a bit more difficult, but they always are. So I wouldn't say it's a very difficult time in that sense for this, because as doctors, we meet these kinds of problems and things like that on a day-to-day basis, pretty much. So some days are more stressful than others, really.
Yeah.
So I think it's and especially now that I've come back, everybody's kind of accepted that it is this corona going around, and we practice social distancing, but other than that, you barely really notice the difference.
Yeah, brilliant. Here, so you're a resident doctor in one of the world's most prestigious hospitals.
Yeah.
People's going to be wondering, how old are you?
Yeah, I'm 25.
So you're 25. You're the youngest doctor to be in that position in Sweden. And this is a podcast about talent talking. And I know from the first moment that I met you that you were like this rock star talent, like really smart, fantastic guy with the world at his feet for sure. So you have to tell us the path. This is the things we need to hear. Is like tell us your path, how you came to being in such a prestigious position on the global scale, actually, at such a young age.
Yeah, well, it's thanks. Very kind of you to say those things. But initially it really comes down to the mentality and the mindset you have. A mantra I've always believed in is that you use your opportunities to your advantage. So there is a certain amount of luck you need, but you need to be able to take advantage of those in a way as well. So I've known I wanted to become a doctor since like 7th grade. And that's because of Dr. House. Obviously, I don't want to be like him, but, he's kind of what started this whole career path, really. So since then, I've just been trying to become a doctor. And there have been difficult things, obviously, that I've had to overcome. Some difficulties in the past. But it's a difficult road, no doubt. But it's definitely worth it.
Yeah. Can you give us like some insight into some of the difficulties that you faced, or some of the things maybe other people wouldn't be aware of on the road to becoming a doctor, just generally?
Yeah, I mean, like when I started med school, I always had this like idea that, oh, like this can't be that hard. I went to high school, and I mean, sure, it's a bit more work, but I have a good memory, so I should be able to pull it off quite well. And then I actually started med school, and then I had no idea what I was getting into, and like the first year was very, very difficult for me. And like the first half year, I became a little overconfident because I got really good grades and it went really well. And then the second half, I got horrible grades, and I almost failed as well. But
Did you
then,
take?
then then I managed to focus a bit more, and then I managed to get back on track again later on once I've known what this is all about. So yeah, that was definitely tough.
Yeah.
And then
So you,
even later on, when I was looking for jobs and everything, it was a difficult time as well because it was hard to find a job as well because I'm a young doctor with very little experience in the medical field. So people want experience before you have experience in a way, so it's one of those situations. And but now everything's looking up. I have great colleagues at work. I have a great research group that I'm with as well, great supervisors, and and my family supported me through all of this, and which was particularly important during exams because I was totally crushed before my exams.
yeah,
And so yeah, that's basically.
yeah. I know from doing my own profession to become an accountant and a tax lawyer,
Yeah,
it's a very competitive path actually.
really.
But I was actually lucky to be able to become a CEO a few years ago for a medtech company working with robotic surgeons.
Yeah.
And it was working with those guys. I realized that there's accountants, but then the doctors are a level above, because the people who seem to go into medicine are the people who were the best of the best. I mean, the accountants and the lawyers and those guys were smart. They were top guys and they had it. But it seemed that the doctors were the smartest people, and they were sort of the most um, focused, even from the youngest age, like maybe even from primary school. And they
Mm-hmm.
always seemed to be picked, maybe even society or whatever it was had sort of pushed them on this fast track to going, okay, you're going for the most difficult path, and that's medicine. And
Yeah.
if you can get through that and come out of that and basically do what you're doing, like get into one of these prestigious hospitals, then you're really someone who deserves the respect. And we always have this respect for medical professionals anyway, and the people who are within the professions. But by getting a close look at the doctors, you really see that there is an extra level of I could almost say the word madness or focus or something, that they really, really want to be the best. So it is the best of the best who goes into that profession.
Yeah.
And of course, a lot of those people within that profession don't ever get, a lot of them don't ever get published.
Mm-hmm.
But you were published before you even graduated, if I'm right.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's true. I managed to get another one of those opportunities, that I was talking about earlier. I mean, I was just, thinking at the time, it's like, oh, it's extra work, shouldn't I focus on other things right now? And I'm just like, it's a new challenge, why not? So then I got into another amazing research group there in Budapest, and I was lucky. I did a lot of work there, and a great supervisor as well. So we did a lot of work together, and I got published as well.
Yeah.
So it was great, and it gave me a lot of insight into the scientific field as well, obviously. And basically that's what caused me to continue research today as well.
Yeah. And have you been published since, or are you working towards being published at the moment?
No, we're working on. We have three manuscripts now that we're working on right now with the research group. So so we're working on those as well, because it's a very lengthy process getting published and all those things. So, but there's a couple of things we're working on right now, and hopefully in a couple of months they'll be published as well.
Yeah.
So instead of one, we'll have about 2 or 3 at once.
Wow. Here. So how old were you when you got published?
Well, it was about 3 years ago, I think.
So you're like 22 years old?
Yeah, yeah.
So
yeah.
is anyone else in Europe being published at that age?
Oh, that's a great question. I don't actually, I know not many of my colleagues were back then, but I mean, there's a lot of really, really talented people in the field of medicine as well. So I can't, I don't really know.
Yeah, but
for
that's why I'm
sure.
asking you, because there's always, no matter what the profession is you go into or the field that you choose, there's always a high competition for just to sort of be the best you can for yourself in a way.
Yeah.
But a lot of those people, there's always a few people in who can stick their head up that extra little bit further or sooner or better or higher.
Yeah.
And you're that guy, like you're the guy who's able to compete at the highest level at such a young age and do it. And I know that you're saying it was difficult for you to find a job and things like that, but you're working in Karolinska Institute.
No, of course. Now, knowing now everything that happened and everything, I don't know why I worried, to be honest, because it turned out great. It turned out for the best. But at the time, you're obviously worried, and you don't know what's going to happen. So it did turn out for the best, and it always is like that. I had so many different plans throughout the years that I'd be doing something else. For example, I took the USMLE. It's like an exam doctors have to take from abroad to be able to work in the US. It's a very lengthy, difficult exam. And so I did that. And then I ended up working here in Sweden regardless.
Yeah.
So, and I was thinking about the UK as well and Australia and everything, but I ended up coming back home instead. And it also turned out for the best, So even if you don't plan it, it generally goes the right way. I feel it has for me, luckily enough.
Yeah. So there's going to be people who's around the world who are either within the field of medicine or hoping to get into that field of medicine.
Yeah.
Like, what do you have to say to those people? Like, because it is tough. Sometimes they're working 24, 30, 40 hours around the clock without going home and things. What's your insight from someone who's so raw and so close to that process? And also, like, what is the thing that they need to sort of focus on it from your perspective, having come through it?
Yeah, everything you've heard about medicine is generally true, and maybe more difficult too. Because it's been a difficult road, and it still is. I'm a resident, and you're basically a resident lifelong in medicine, so you're always learning something new, and you have to be very active in the field. So I'm still trying to work hard, do my best and everything. And I hope I will continue doing so for many, many more years. But if you're just starting out, it's not just a mindset. I read this book. I started reading the book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. I don't know if you read it. It's a great book, very interesting. And there the author talks about this map. It's a very interesting that it's not enough to have a good mindset, and it's not enough to work hard and everything. You also have to have a map. So you have to have opportunities and like a basis for everything. So I feel like, working hard alone is not going to get you to where you want to be. You have to have the complete package, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, if you want to pursue the road to medicine, it's a tough one, but it's definitely worth it, I think.
Yeah. And what other books have you been reading, around those types of, self-help, pushing people on, that type of thing? What else has been sort of popping up on your radar?
Oh, I do like books, and I do enjoy them. What else? I kind of read different kinds of books, so I can't think of another one that I've read recently. Although, actually, there is one I read, which I suggested to you last year as well. It's written by a Swedish author. It's called Surrounded by Idiots. And I think that is an excellent book as well. Not everybody likes this idea that you categorize people into like 4 different colors, what he does. But I think it's a very interesting perspective in how you can communicate with different kinds of people. And it's a book I would recommend for everyone,
Yeah.
Can you expand on that a bit? It's very broad and it's very generalized, but it still is a great way to think about it when you communicate with someone, I think.
Yeah. And what insights can you give us on that one? Like, Surrounded by Idiots, what's the essence of that book?
Yeah, it's called Surrounded by Idiots is because some people don't understand each other, so they just assume everyone around them is doing something wrong, or just is too lazy, or is too slow. And so that's basically the idea of it, and that's the essence of the book. Because, for example, there are these people who have the so-called red personalities who want everything done right there, right then, and then there's the blue personalities who like go through everything systematically, take their time, write a list, write another list of the list, and things like that, you know. So that's why one would assume that the other one is too slow and the other one is just too sloppy. So that's why they both think, you know, they're idiots.
Yeah. There's like almost an expectations gap or a knowledge gap between people.
Exactly.
And because that gap exists, it's like, oh, they must be an idiot because they don't do things my way.
Exactly.
Yeah. There's a great analogy that I have, and I think we've talked about this before, about the elephant. So whenever it comes to someone that I meet having an opinion or an insight or a way of doing things different from how I do them, which is nearly every person because I'm so weird. I always think about the elephant analogy. It's like me and you're sitting here now facing each other at a table, and we have never seen an elephant before, and you plop the elephant down in the middle, and we have one of our friends, say Alex, to the right of us or to your left, and they say to each of us, no, this is an elephant. You have never seen this before. Can each of you describe this to, you know, from what you see? So you're at the back of it, so you just see it as like a big circular type of thing with two stumps and a small line.
Yeah.
And as you're describing it that way, me and Alex are looking at ourselves and going, what? So it comes across to Alex, and he's like, no, it's like this massive wall.
Yeah.
Square, little line at the back, massive, big, floaty arm coming out the front or whatever. A flappy thing at the front and one eyeball. And I'm looking, now we're both looking at each other going, what? Like, that's completely different from what you've described an elephant being like. And then it comes around to me, and I'm like, you guys are both off your head. Because what it is, it's got like one big massive like arm coming out the front, two eyeballs, two flappy discs of some sort, and two stumps at the front. And what we've all described is something which is completely different. But based on our perspective and how we've got to this point in life, we're all telling the truth.
Yeah.
And we're all sharing it and as we see it.
Yeah.
So whenever someone tells me that they agree with Hillary Clinton, or they agree with Trump or Brexit, or their opinion is relevant because it's based on the path that they have come through to get to the point to agree with that sort of wider outlook on life, or this particular person's views that they want to get behind. And it's the same with football teams. I support Manchester United, so I think that's always the best team in the world, and they're just always like one game away from showing us. And every other football fan thinks the same, but everyone's opinion is relevant. So this is why when people comes to me with something that's so out of my reality, like, I think that this dictator's right and how he runs their society, I really want to talk to that person, and I want to know how they came up with this insight, because they're right based on the fact that it's their path. It's like they're standing at the back of the elephant and I'm standing at the front of it, and we both see it in two different ways. But none of us are wrong. You know, it's as you say, we're both idiots to each other.
Yeah.
So, you know, but
and this is particularly relevant right now with this corona pandemic that's going on with the face masks, for example, because here in Sweden nobody uses face masks really outside, and in other countries people like almost religiously believe in face masks. So I think that's just like you said, everybody has a different opinion, and I mean obviously we'll see how it pans out in the end. So
genuine question, I think I think to have a face mask on me would be a bit more unhygienic.
Yeah.
Because basically I'm catching all the germs and stuff. So it's more unhygienic for me, but it's more hygienic for everyone around me. So it turns out everyone basically has to have a muzzle on their face for us to move forward in society based on this. And I know you guys wear them a lot when you're in theatre and things. I don't know. But so what's your medical sort of professional perspective on society as a whole wearing face masks?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very controversial topic because
I'm recording this podcast through Anchor. And if you're considering doing a podcast and you haven't heard about Anchor, then let me tell you, it's the easiest way to do a podcast. So let me explain. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute the podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many other platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. And it's everything that you need to make a podcast all in one place. Definitely check it out. Download the app now from the store.
Studies haven't exactly shown that they do help, but they haven't shown that they don't help either. There are different kinds of face masks as well. I mean, those like ones that people make themselves aren't probably hygienic at all, really. If anything, they're worse because, just like you said, they catch them all. But I mean, there are like these different kinds of masks as well, face masks that you can use, and some of them are pretty good. But I mean, that's what we use, for example, when we have influenza patients and everything, so we don't contract it. But a normal surgical mask, I mean, that's up for debate, obviously. And there's no really right or wrong. You can think about it, and logical reasoning might show that, but I mean, there have to be studies that show very clearly how it works.
Yeah. I probably have a bit of a skewed approach to this, but as a 41-year-old guy who's healthy and runs marathons and eats clean and lives clean, I'm open to getting all viruses almost that I can get because I really believe in the power of my immune system.
Yeah.
And it's been designed to come in and take on these viruses and sort of overcome them and make itself stronger.
Yeah.
And I was talking to someone recently who was working with kids in America.
Yeah.
And one of these kids was kept in such feral conditions by his parents before that he was brought into this children's home. I think it was, or hospital. And he was saying that this kid never got sick because he was living in such filth that his immune system was like just turned up to 1,000. Whereas one of the reasons, as an asthmatic myself, one of the reasons why apparently a lot of people are getting asthma, and I'm talking to a doctor, so tell me to shut up at any time, is because we live in such a sterilized, clean society now where our immune systems are compromised a bit because they're actually not being worked as hard as they could be.
Yeah.
Am I completely off in treating this sort of virus the wrong way, and that I'm sort of more open as a healthy, non-cancer suffering, non-old person to sort of letting it hit me and take it from there, or what would you say?
Yeah, that is difficult because there have been people who have died even though they were completely healthy before.
Yeah.
Although, so it's very hard to know exactly why they didn't survive this, but that's what I was kind of hoping for as well when I got the corona, that my immune system would fight it off, because just like you said, I am also young and I do exercise and eat healthy too, but still I got symptoms from it. And so it's interesting for sure, but exactly what's behind it, it's very hard to say.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I was sick so I was actually, I'm thinking back, when I met you, I was at the end of it, and I was texting you before that going, what should I take for this?
Yeah.
Because that was me coming out the back of that when I met you. And I was like, you were like just loads of, the normal doctor thing, like, take care of yourself, plenty of rest.
Yeah.
And you were right enough. Yeah, and you were right, and I appreciated your advice at the time. But I actually came to you like a month later going, I'm still sick. I've been in bits for a while, and I'm trying to prepare for a marathon and different things.
Yeah.
So, but I'm happy I went through it. But I honestly I wouldn't wish it on anyone else to go through such a strenuous sickness. And I can see how something like that could really stretch the elderly or people who are immunocompromised.
No, absolutely. And even for me, now that I'm back at work, I still get some breathlessness. I mean, I haven't been to the gym in a couple of weeks. I just started recently, and just going up like some stairs, it just gets me completely out of breath, which is horrible. I'm not really used to that. And so basically have to start from ground zero again and train myself up. And it is a weird feeling, so just like you said, it's hard to imagine what people who have some comorbidities would be feeling in this situation. Mm.
Let's look at this from your profession's perspective. How do you see this pandemic affecting the way that the medical staff work? Over the next 3 months, over the next year, and over the next 5 years, what's going to change within your profession,
Well,
if anything?
that is, yeah, exactly. That's a pretty hot topic right now, because that's why Sweden's here right now, because they believe that they could be doing this kind of quarantine for another 2 years or so, just as we are right now. But other countries would probably not be able to do what they're doing, the complete quarantine and complete lockdown. And so it's, I mean, surely we're hopefully going to learn from this, but I mean, pandemics like this have existed for, thousands of years. So exactly what our take-home message is going to be, I mean, we'll see how it develops based on the outcome, really, of this pandemic.
Yeah, it's definitely unique times. I think we're really well set up in Sweden. We have, I think, if not the fastest internet in the world, the second fastest. We have a society which has been very open to men and women both working from home, leaving their offices, at lunch times and things, to go and pick up kids.
Yeah.
And so for many years, we've actually almost had a digital society which has been pushing towards what has been coming. And I've been doing a lot of different media and reports and various things, working with the city of Stockholm from a foreign direct investment perspective.
Yeah.
And what I said to them within the city 6 to 8 weeks ago, as I said, I don't believe that anything is going to change per se. What I believe is going to happen is the acceleration of where we were already going. So people like things to happen incrementally and slowly and in a way that they're comfortable, just with enough change just to sort of, not upset the apple cart. But how I see it is we were going to work and live in a society which was more digital, more remote, more connected through the internet, and all of that was going to happen over 10 years. But the problem is it's going to become the norm over the next 10 months because it was pushed on us over the space of 10 days. So in 10 days, the whole world sort of says, this is where we're in.
Yeah.
Within 10 months, this is going to be the norm.
Yeah.
But it was going to happen anyway within 10 years, is what my point was. So it's not as if anything is changing. It's actually just accelerated the pace of which we were moving towards this objective anyway.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
I believe that in our society that we live in Stockholm, we live in the future as far as a lot of other societies are concerned.
Yeah.
And there's a great saying that says the future is already here. It's just unequally distributed. So I've had a microchip in my wrist for the last 5 years.
I remember showing me that.
So that is the future for a lot of other people. Like living and working the way we do within our society is the future for a lot of other people, not least within Irish society where I'm from.
Yeah.
So I'm not too stressed about the changes that were coming because I foreseen them coming anyway. And when I say change, for me, it was just an acceleration.
Yeah. No, surely, and especially in the digital environment, I'm sure this has boosted some creativity as well.
Yeah.
So it shows us exactly what we're capable of from home, really. And but I also think that our social connections are going to be a lot more powerful after this quarantine, because we're going to appreciate how scarce it really is, and how we're actually not able to communicate through social media or WhatsApp or all these or whatever, really. So I think we're going to appreciate these social contacts when we meet up and things a lot more.
Yeah. How did your 2019 look? Have you any regrets or things that you wish you had it done last year because you can't do them this year?
No, not really. I wouldn't say I have. I worked a lot last year. So, didn't really have much of a summer break last year. And I mean, I don't anticipate I'll have much of one this year either.
Yeah.
Because of the corona. But nothing I particularly regret. I mean, I try to live my life with as many regrets as possible, just as, like many other people, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I like to think everything I do I do for a reason on the long run, so I learn from it. So I don't really think there are that many regrets per se that I have.
Yeah.
I don't know about you. What about you?
Well, my 2019 was fantastic, actually, as usual. I went to 26 countries. I ran marathons in 2 continents. I published a new book. I ticked off so many massive life goals, actually.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I actually was planning to have a really calm and settled first 6 months of this year, because I wanted to write a new book and I wanted to do various things. And it just seems as if the world has just sort of folded into my plans in a way.
Yeah.
So this has actually made everything a lot easier for me. If there's ever such a thing as it's been a blessing, which I would never say that, but from the plans and the way that I had planned to approach this year,
Yeah.
that's actually, everything is lined up for me quite well in that way.
Yeah.
So I just have a lot of empathy for the people who were probably going on the holiday of a lifetime this year, or getting married and having honeymoons, and for those people I have a lot of empathy and compassion.
Yeah.
And I hope that they can sort of get through this and fulfill those plans with even more vigor whenever they get out the other side, as you say. But I for me personally, it was actually made my life easier, because it sort of took away more distractions. I'm at the moment, I've got this desire to pack up my bag and head down and to finish off the Camino de Santiago de Compostela, because I have only done like the first 20% of that.
Yeah.
And I've got a real craving now that the weather's getting nicer in Sweden, to go down to Spain and do it. But of course, Spain's locked down, and of course those sort of refugios and the albergues are completely shut down, and they'll not be opening for probably 2 years. So the temptation's taken away. So I'm getting all these other life goals ticked off behind the scenes, which will come to fruition. In the next year, actually.
Yeah.
For example, hand sanitizer has never been more expensive. But,
yeah, right.
But Amazon shares will never be this cheap again.
Yeah.
So I haven't been buying much sanitizer. I've been buying shares and stocks and things. Whenever I see people talking about stocking up on toilet paper, I'm like, let me check the stock prices.
Yeah.
And I've been sort of just stacking up on those.
Yeah.
So I've been sort of going against the grain in a lot of the ways, and trying to use this to my own personal advantage and for my own family.
Absolutely. Same here. I mean, I recently got into the stock market as well. I haven't really bothered or spent time trying to learn it, but recently, especially since I had some time now in the quarantine, I started reading up on it and everything. And obviously I'm a rookie in this, but it's nice to be able to, learn a little bit about different kinds of areas in life, and I always like this. And back to this 2019 question, I remember I met you at late 2018, I think, and that's where you started saying you're preparing for the marathon. I think it was the Stockholm Marathon, or I think it was that one, right? Maybe.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking you're just such an inspiration in that sense. And then I started running a bit as well, but I never liked running, so that's never really been my thing. But then I made it my goal as well to at least run the half marathon, which I managed to do last year, and that was a huge success for me. I've done many other things, but running has never been my thing, and especially running for 2 hours straight. 2 hours straight has, it's probably the most boring 2 hours of my life. But now I'm done with that. But now, now that I feel like I've done that, now the next step is doing the marathon, just like you, and running in. I think it was. Were you in Dubai or was it Abu Dhabi?
Yeah, I did Abu Dhabi in December.
Yeah. No, the marathon I definitely want to do in some amazing place someday.
Yeah. Well, I don't. This makes no reason or rhyme or sense at all. But for me, the half marathon is a lot more difficult than the marathon.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense. Don't ask me why I'm even saying that, but I can just say that it seems like more drudgery.
Yeah.
To do a half marathon, whereas I think with the marathon, you sort of just give yourself over to the whatever, the gods of running or whatever, and you
Yeah,
just let your legs carry you.
yeah,
Whereas the half marathon was so painful for me. It was, as you say, it was 2 hours, or maybe for me it was 5 hours or whatever how long it took me, of just pain and suffering and whatever else. But but I mean, this is stoicism as well. You know, this is a lot to be gained and earned from that pain and from that ability to take that one more step, and that let's get to the next corner, and that's good, because it's almost an analogy of life.
yeah,
To do a marathon,
yeah,
or to do any type of running at all, it's like, okay, let's go one more time, let's get up, let's get to the next corner.
yeah,
And I think there's almost a sense of freedom in it. And I believe that the most difficult part of any run for me is the first kilometer.
yeah,
It really crushes me. And then if I'm looking at a marathon and things, I'm still struggling with the first five.
yeah, yeah,
And then it turns out that somewhere after I get through the first five, my brain just gives up, and my sort of inner child just takes over and just starts playing
yeah.
and listening to music and enjoying the people around me and high-fiving people in the crowd.
Yeah.
So I don't know if I'm making any sense to anyone.
No,
but
yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you as well. The first couple kilometers are definitely the toughest, maybe even the first two, you know? And then you kind of just get into the flow, and you're kind of in there, you know, you're in your own mindset listening to music and stuff. So I have to agree with you. But
yeah,
how you started running a couple of years ago, right?
yeah.
Like training for the marathon and stuff. Why didn't you do it before that? Like, I don't know, 10 years ago.
I didn't like it at all. Actually, I love to run after something like football
Yeah.
or tennis,
Yeah.
or I like to have something else that I'm going for, and the running is just the sort of vehicle that gets me to the ball.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm really much into running after a ball, but the more I run, then the more it sets me free. Actually, as a person, like it feels so great now to be 41 years old and to have an abundance of energy and sort of vitality within my body.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, like I know that I can handle myself in most situations now, because I've sort of fired the engine or the chi or whatever it is that goes within my inner core.
Yeah.
And now that it's lit again, it feels so much good to be able to spring around the society,
Sure.
as opposed to drag my feet around the society.
No, of course. But do you think it's harder for you to be running marathons now? And do you think it would have been easier 10 years ago, or is it the opposite?
I think I was reading recently about the people who do the ultra marathons, or maybe the ultra triathlons, and a lot of those people who do those and do well in them are in their 50s.
Yeah, this is exactly what I wanted to talk about.
It's the paradox. So basically, I think it's like people who've been through more in life. They're more tougher in their mind, even though their body is a bit more broken.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it is a battle with your mind anyway, because your body will always carry you that extra step. You'll always be able to take one more step.
Yeah.
So, and I think we discussed this before about the sort of the mental strength increases as you get older.
Yeah, yeah.
Although the physical strength decreases.
Yeah, yeah.
So, I mean, I know you're ripped. I mean, you're complaining there about how I know you're ripped, and I know you're in great shape. So, but this is actually one of the things that I think sets you apart from everyone almost that I meet, is you've got such a finely tuned and composed mentality towards goal setting, and you've got a really common sense approach towards who you are, but also who you aren't. No, I really get when I'm with you, I really feel that Marcus knows who he's not already.
Yeah.
Already. And I mean, in the last few years, since I turned 35, since I went through that last 7-year cycle, I sort of found out a lot about who I wasn't. And that's half the battle. Like, I'm not that guy, I'm not that guy, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
Don't try, because I'll never be it. It seems that you got there very young. You know, you started realizing, first of all, I can't be these people, but I'm decent enough at being this guy. So let's focus on that.
Oh, well, thank you. I'm blushing. Thank you very much for those kind words. And yeah, well, you know, it is a battle, you know, everything, and you have to find inspirations. So I'm very glad I met you as well. A very sane-minded individual. So it's great to learn things from you as well, you know. And I'm lucky enough as well because my parents have been an inspiration to me since I was from a very young age. So I really look up to them, and I think it's important to find people you look up to and respect, and in every field, So it's whether it's your professional career, if you look up to your supervisor, which I do have a great relationship with my supervisor, for example, and my bosses. So I think all of this is really important to actually build your character and what your goals are as well, who you want to be and who you don't actually want to be.
Yeah. Do you have a vision if you look forward into 20 years of sort of the man you'd like to be both personally and professionally? Or is there a goal anywhere there? Or did you like to share at least?
No, and I know if whatever I plan is going to change regardless. That's how it always is, But no, I'm just I'm just learning, and I'm trying to see what options there really are, for me. I mean, I have no idea what I'm going to be wanting even a year from now. Maybe completely something. I mean, I like to do different things for sure. Yeah. And I get bored doing the exact same thing for 30 years. So, we'll see. I don't actually have a goal or anything in mind. What about you?
Well, what I see in you is actually, I think from the last few talks we've had when we're just sitting back drinking tea, I think you could be the future of medicine, actually, in a way. And I'm not saying that at too much of a high level, but you really understand tech. You understand the current sort of environment. You've really got your finger on the pulse of the modern society. Whenever I look at many doctors, it's not an age thing, because I know a few doctors who are in their 50s and 60s who are so engaged, across all platforms, and really have their head screwed on, and they haven't taken anything sort of for granted.
Yeah.
And I see you as hopefully being a guy who's always got that thirst for knowledge and always wanting to learn. And someone like you with the leadership skills you have already could be the boy who sort of pulls, let's say, Swedish medicine in a way which is better for the society here. And of course, Sweden is leading the way in so many fields that if you're leading the way in Sweden, you're close enough to leading the way globally. Actually, this is as a non-Swede living in this society, I find it to be a very competitive place, actually, and there's a lot of great minds and a lot of great people who are thought leaders.
Yeah.
And I find that if I can compete in Sweden with the best of the people, then I can compete in New York, I can compete in London, I can compete in Sydney and in Asia.
Yeah.
And you're definitely a thought leader in that regard. And as I say, you're 25 years old. You're working for one of the most prestigious sort of university hospitals globally. And I think the fact that you've almost got that playful approach to your career, like, let's see what comes next, and I'll just smack it out the park, and I'll smack the next one out the park. It's a great attitude.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's all about overcoming new challenges, I feel. I don't know what your point, what you think about that, but I think challenges are what keep us going,
Yeah.
So it's great to set goals constantly. And you can't, I feel like it's unrealistic to set a goal like, too far into the future, because you don't really know what's going to happen and how it's going to change. But obviously there are long-term goals you should, try to accomplish, whatever it might be. So I'll agree with you on that.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to sort of wind things up. If people want to get in contact with this famous young doctor, what's the best place that you'd like them to reach out to? Is there a particular social media or?
Well, wherever, I feel like I'm a very approachable guy, so I'd like to help anyone with whatever I can. Obviously, I have limited skill set, but if anyone needs anything, I'm very happy to help. Email, phone, social media, exactly, or whatever.
Yeah. I'll put links to this to your Instagram, LinkedIn, maybe, in the sort of the comment section of this podcast, and people who want to reach out to you can take it from there. I won't put down your phone number just in case.
Excellent, thank you.
A handsome young chap like yourself. I know your lovely girlfriend might not be too impressed with me putting out your phone number. But And I can definitely back it up because one of my friends from Spain, her sister's a doctor, and she was looking for some insight, and you were just on it like that, helping her.
Yeah.
So again, you're an inspiration to many people, and I want to thank you for coming on this podcast and sharing your insight and wisdom, particularly at such a sort of unique time in our history.
Yeah, well, thank you. It was a great experience. I listened to a lot of podcasts and I enjoy podcasts a lot, but I've never imagined I'd actually be on one. So thank you for the opportunity, and it was very valuable.
Yeah, it's been an honor. We'll leave it at that, brother.
All right.
Have a lovely weekend,
Yeah, you too.
and we'll take it from there.
All right.